We are continuing our talk on the Sefirot of Kabbalah and understanding what these characteristics of Hashem are. And again, we usually cover this during the Sefirat haOmer, the counting of the haOmer, where we take one of the lower 7 Sefirot, or Sefirah, every week, and we talk about them, and we pray on them, and we meditate on them, and we try to develop them into our lives. So I want to remind everyone, just kind of as we approach this, number one, what does Kabbalah mean? Somebody tell me. To receive, right? Or that which has been received. As I use the word all the time, when we do Kabbalat Shabbat on Friday evenings, we make Kiddush, that whole thing, candle lighting, wine, bread, prayers, all those things we do is called Kabbalat Shabbat, where we're receiving the Sabbath, we're welcoming the Sabbath. So this wisdom that we are receiving, that we are studying, has been things that have been developed over the centuries as the Jewish people, who God entrusted himself to, have sought to seek and understand who God is and how he functions and how he interfaces with us in this world, in this life. So the Sefirot are the divine emanations, the divine characteristics, have been developed into what we call the tree of life, the Etz Chaim, which is just a pictorial form of how these things work. And I think I've said it before, but I understand that some people don't think this deep about it, right? Some people don't think this deep about it. They're like, I love God, I follow God, I'm a good person, I'm faithful to God, I'm good. Like, I don't need all this stuff, right? I get it. I don't know. Well, let me say this. I'm fairly certain I was a pretty annoying kid. I don't know that because I don't remember. But I, as an adult, am the kind of person that can't leave anything alone. You know what I mean? Like, I got to pick at it and pick and pick and pick and wonder why. I was an annoying kid because I remember I always just took stuff apart just because I had to know, like, what is the base of how this thing works, right? And so it has developed into an adult, and so I have to understand some of this stuff. If you don't care, I get it. You don't have to. It's completely fine. But for those of us who like to pick at stuff, we fall in a really rich heritage of Jewish sages who spent the majority of their lives studying Torah, studying the Word of God, studying the prophets, and then meditating on how this stuff all works, right? For many people, they just take for granted that it works. It works. God does his thing, I do my thing, we do our thing together, it works. It's all good, right? My family's healthy, happy, good job, good life, amen, right? And some of us are just not happy enough with that. We just gotta, right? My mom always got on to me because my fingers always look really, really, really bad because I pick. Anybody else pick your finger? You're like, what is wrong with you? Yeah, no, I do, like, okay. Anyway. So we started out and we have talked about chesed, which is, even though it appears right here in the middle of the Etz Chaim, it is kind of the foundational understanding of how we understand God, his chesed, his loving kindness, that he has reached out to us, the way that he drew us in, the way that he brought us near was through that loving kindness. Sadly enough, God's loving kindness is either downplayed in some teachings, in some teachers, in some circles. It's downplayed, and the hellfire and brimstone is what you really hear. In other places, chesed is all you hear, and you don't hear any of the other side of the balance of this, which is on this side of the Etz Chaim, which is Gevurah, which is God's justice. It's also linked to self-control, and it's that drawing of the lines, those boundary lines, and boundaries are good. So we talked about those two, and then we talked about the the product of Gevurah and Chesed, which is Tiferet. And Tiferet is this harmonious peace and beauty that we get whenever we understand Chesed and Gevurah. Those things together create Tiferet. But Tiferet is not only a passive emanation, it is something that we can actively engage. That sometimes you just have, we call it wusaka, sometimes, which is not kosher, but sometimes you just have to take a breath, right? Sometimes you have to go like, I have been as faithful, I have loved, I have given, I have done as much as I can. And before I get to the point where the justice hammer comes down, I have to have some, right? It may happen with your kids or grandkids, not grandkids because they can't do anything wrong. But it may happen with, your kid. It may happen with somebody else's kids. I have that problem sometimes. It may happen with your spouse. It may happen with a coworker or somewhere where we go like, I'm really trying to love you well. I'm really trying to show, my chesed, but you're about to get the pain hammer. And so before that, I have to have some harmony. I have to have some balance, right? Last week we looked at Netzach, which is down here. And Netzach is the characteristic of victory or eternity. It is that pushing through, taking control, taking charge, and making things happen. It's that characteristic of God where He is victorious. He's the victorious King. He's the one that puts His enemies below His feet, right? And in our lives, the way that we reflect that, or the way that we cultivate that, is more in a way of being steadfast, of being faithful. And as we kind of connect these all to the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5, Netzach has to do with patience and long suffering, right? So that it's that he who endures to the end will be saved. That's the idea of Netzach. Not only will be saved, but will be victorious, right? So it's an important characteristic to cultivate. There's a comedian named Ron White who was big several years ago. He was part of the Blue Collar Comedy. You guys might know who he is. He's very off color, but that's okay. But and one of his jokes is about himself as a kid, where his dad or somebody would always say, "That boy's got a lot of quit in him," and it's stuck with me so much because I see a lot of people that's got a lot of quit. They got a lot of quit. Every time you talk to them, it's always something negative about what they can't do, why they can't do it. Always an excuse, always a something, always a limitation. It's always somebody else holding them back. It's always their boss. It's always their spouse. It's always their coworkers. It was their parents that damaged them. It was always something. And I just want to say, get some Netzach. Get some stick to it. Get some patience. Show up and do the work, and you'll see what happens. This week, we are talking about the balance to Netzach, because the beautiful thing about Netzach is that if you have push, if you have drive, if you have will, if you have patience, if you have the endurance to endure through whatever you're going through, that's wonderful. And more of us need to have that. Too many people, Chill and I, by the way, it's great to have Chill back with us today. Love you, man, and missed you so much. But we were talking before about how Chill's gotten out of DeRidder and gone to Atlanta and come back, and he's like, man, the well's not what I thought it was. Yeah, I know. I'm back in the workforce after 25 years, and it's not what I thought it was either. So let's compare notes. But I'm going to say these kids today, right? I'm going to be that guy. But just because stuff doesn't feel good doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. Just because stuff doesn't feel good doesn't mean that it's not worth our effort and our pushing and our finishing, right? Because things get rough and start to hurt and there starts to be pain doesn't mean that we stop. It's he who endures to the end that will be saved. It's he who endures to the end I'm going to pick on Robin and them a little bit. Just started going back to the gym. Are you still sore? It's been 2 weeks. Get over it. Come on. All right. But when you first get back in the gym, it's a lot of fun because you're progressing really quick. You're adding weight every week, and it's like, oh man, I'm seeing results, and it's awesome. About a year and a half, 2 years in, that progress starts to really slow down, and you go like, am I doing anything? Like, what's the point? And that's where a lot of people fall off. If you're dieting, you may lose 10 pounds in the first, 2 weeks, water weight and all that stuff that you're getting out of your system, and it's great. And then the longer you diet, the slower that loss gets, and you think, why am I even doing this? In your marriage, you might come to, we get married, and it's wonderful, that honeymoon period, right? That love period where it's euphoric, and then you have to start living together, and you wake up sometime, and you roll over, and you go like, what? And I never did. I'm sure you did. Heather did, I'm sure, a lot. Every time I roll over and look, she's a glowing, just vision of heaven. So, thanks. So, but it's in all of those turning points, those critical moments, where we have the choice to make whether we're going to go like, this is not worth it, I'm on to something else, or whether we're going to go, no, this is where this is where it really I have to lock in, and I have to really engage, and I have to give it my all now, because that point, once you make it through, it's beautiful on the other side, right? And what we do, and I'm the poster child for this, is when things get hard, we go like, this is not worth it, I'm going to go do something else. And what we're chasing is an endorphin rush. We're chasing that dopamine, because when you start something new, it's fun and exciting and fresh, and you get to learn, and it's curious and it's wonderful. You know how many people fall off of the Torah walk? Because at first, it's fun and it's a blast, and man, there's parts of my Bible that are coming alive I've never even seen before, and it's just, there's a whole world out there to explore. Oh my gosh, the Jewish sages and the festivals and just the Hebrew and all the things, like I just get goosebumps even thinking about it. And they get into it in 6 months, a year, 2 years, it's wonderful. And then you have to start living it. The idea has to become a lifestyle. And then you realize, well, after you do this for a while, it just becomes kind of, dull is a good word. It has a tendency to become kind of dull, kind of every day, like, well, this is just what we do. And like, it's actually a sign of maturity when it becomes kind of dull. It means that you've gotten it down as a habit. It doesn't bring that like, ooh, thing anymore. It's because it's become a part of who you are so much that you don't even really notice you're doing it. We mistake that for it being stale and dull. But what it really is it really is a compliment to your discipline, to your patience, that you have worked these Torah principles into your life, these mitzvot, these observances so much that they become a part of who you are. They become second nature. You don't get a thrill every time you go brush your teeth in the morning. Well, maybe you do, but that'd be weird. You don't get a thrill doing those everyday things, combing your hair if you have hair to brush or whatever, but you don't get a thrill doing that because it's just what you do. But all the things are important because it makes you who you are. And so we need to not be people who are chasing an endorphin rush, who are chasing a dopamine high every 6 months, every 3 weeks, every whatever. It's about being committed and about being patient. So that's all the good things about Netzach. One of the bad things, or the possible negative sides of Netzach, is that it can produce a lot of pride. Netzach can produce a lot of callousness and a lot of pride. Why? Well, because when you go through a really hard situation, or when you're learning a lesson, or you're going through one of those seasons, and you just push and push and push, it's really easy for us to think that we're the bee's knees. Like, I did it on my own. Now, this is not to beat you down. I'm going to talk about this when we get to the balance. This is not to beat anybody down, because, again, kind of my baggage is everything was that if you do anything out of your own strength, it's a sin. If you do anything out of your own power, then you're not relying on God, and that's a sin, right? I don't believe that. That's dumb and toxic. So I'm not telling you that you didn't do these things. If you are a person who's developing patience and steadfastness, you are doing it. You. God is not doing it for you like some kind of marionette. You have an active role in the partnership, but it is a partnership. So I want you to be able to give yourself credit for developing patience, for developing that idea of that you were victorious, that you endured. Because if eternity is our goal, however we think about that, whether it's floating on clouds or whether it's here with the Father or whatever your idea of that, it's not the point. If in eternity is our goal, then it starts with little victories. You have to have a victory. You can only have a victory if you endure. And you endure and endure and endure and endure. And eventually that creates eternity. Not necessarily in quantity, but in quality. Yeshua said, I came that you might have life and life more abundant. Eternity, that is a qualitative statement, not a quantitative statement. So, we can get the big head if we neglect to honor God's part in the partnership. Again, He's not controlling you. He's not, Heather and I talk about this stuff all the time. It's funny how some of these understandings of the way God works and how we read the Bible and interpret how God works its way into how we think about things. We have conversations like, and I'm not embarrassed to admit this because you all have these conversations, I'm sure. And if you don't, then you're better than us, so just be snooty about it and let me waller and whatever. But you see people that sometimes are driving around in a really nice vehicle, they have a beautiful home, whatever, their life is all put together. But you know what their lifestyle is like? And do you ever wonder, like, how in the world does that work? How in the world are they drunkards and they run around on their spouse and they're unfair in their business and all that kind of stuff, and it works for them. And yet here we are trying to abide by our P's and Q's and trying to be as much as we can and do everything just as intentionally as we can, and it seems like all we do is struggle. I know I'm not the only one to think that. Again, if you don't ever think that, then congratulations, you're better than me. And somehow we struggle with those things. We struggle with bad people being prosperous and good people struggling. Why do we struggle with that dichotomy? Well, I think it's because a lot of us have been taught that if you do right, good will happen to you. You say, well, yeah, the Bible teaches that. Well, hang on. We don't live a reciprocal faith. There's not reciprocal theology. What I mean by that is that if I do a mitzvot, I get a blessing. That's not how it works. Anybody that's lived more than 6 months knows that's not how it works. I can do 1,000 mitzvot with the right intention, perfectly, all that kind of stuff, and life is crap. That's how the world works. But that result shouldn't affect the way or the possibility that I do what I'm supposed to do. We have turned some of these scriptures, like you reap what you sow, like if you obey my commandments, you'll be blessed, blah, blah, blah. We've turned some of those things into a formula for how to live, and they were not intended to be a formula because life is not formulaic. We're not machines. This is not some computer-generated program. This is not the Matrix, as much as it seems like. That movie was prophetic. I'll throw that word on it. No. But it doesn't work that way, and we should know that. And yet sometimes we have this issue over how these things work. And so it's very important that we have this partnership in mind, that God is He's not going to puppet me through life. I have the responsibility, but I need to remember the partnership, remember the balance. So in Kabbalah, the way that the sages understand the balance for Netzach is a characteristic called Hod. Hod. H-O-D. I'm sorry, my marker's kind of skitzing out. So Hod means a few different things. I'll write it over here, so hopefully it'll be easier to read. This one better? Oh, that's so much better. All right, so Hod, and that is, Hey Vav Dalet. So that is Hey Vav Dalet Hod. Hod means splendor. It also can mean gratitude. It can mean, whatever I have, sincerity. So these are some of the meanings and the way, and then I'm going to write this big one right here. Humility. So these are some of the words that Hod encompasses, some of the attributes that Hod encompasses. So let's talk about splendor or majesty. And we're going to kind of tie all of these to humility. Okay? So we're going to tie all of them to humility because I struggle with humility. Now, before you go, yeah, I bet you do. No. Okay, yeah, you're right. I can have the tendency to be like offensively arrogant. And so to counter that, I self-deprecate a lot. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Not because I don't think I'm worthy or capable or any of that kind of stuff. I don't know for you if you have this pattern, it may be the same. But it's because I know what I'm capable of on the other side. So kind of self-deprecating helps me to kind of modulate my potential arrogance, right? And so I've always had kind of a twisted relationship with the idea of humility. And so when I say I struggle with it, I struggle with understanding how it's supposed to work. Because all of the ways that humility has ever been kind of explained never really works. Again, I gotta pick at it and go like, I don't know, I just gotta keep picking because that doesn't satisfy my whatever version of autism I have. Anyway, so the sages say that Hod balances Netzach. And the balance between Hod and Netzach determines how spiritual blessings are received. Now, think about this. The balance between Netzach and Hod regulate how divine blessings are received. So Hod is associated with an inner beauty and a willingness to receive with gratitude. So as I was studying this the last couple of weeks, so many alarm bells went off for me. So in the next few minutes, I'm just going to try to hit on a couple of them. So the emotional kind of side of Hod, we talk about gratitude, but response to thankfulness and awe, gratitude, humility. So this kind of family of words that we're gonna play with. Hod is that part of you that acknowledges and can actually see through the complications of life to see the blessings. It's that way of seeing that there are challenges in life. It's the way to see that silver lining. And as you're developing or being more conscious of Hod in your life, it shows you really how cynical you have the potential to be. Because if you're a cynical type person, then it's hard to see the silver lining sometime because life's just rough and that's just the way it is, right? But this sense of Hod is an ability to admit your place. So, has anyone ever visited a place, a landscape, a national park, nature, somewhere, and you saw something that just left you in awe? Have you ever had that experience where you just kind of don't know what to say, you know? For some people, it's the beach. I don't know why. Y'all are weird. For me, it's the mountains, right? You turn a trail if you're hiking, and the vista opens up, and it's a valley, and it's just like, you know, it's one of those, and it can take a 1,000 different, shapes and forms, whatever your thing. But have you ever had an experience where something just almost took your breath away? In that experience, do you ever feel less about yourself? You might feel small, but do you ever feel less in value? When you're standing on a mountaintop and you're looking down at whatever, or whatever your thing, whatever your moment is, I want you to kind of go back to that moment and think about what did it make you feel like? Small maybe is a good word, but you don't feel like you're less than. And this is how I want to talk about humility. I've heard humility taught as, well, humility has in my experience, is on a spectrum between, at the worst, humility is realizing who you are, and it's that you are the scum of the earth. That's humility. And just know that, and you'll be all right. And anytime any kind of good thought about yourself tries to sneak in there, that's pride. And you need to beat that down and realize how sorry you really are. And then a more tempered kind of version of that is that I used to have a pastor who used to always say, humility is not thinking less of yourself. Humility is just not thinking of yourself. And I thought, oh, I really like that, until I didn't. Because there came a point in time where I needed to think about me. I needed to focus on me. I needed a really small circle, and I wanted peace at all costs. You ever been there? Where you just can't with anything else until you get some stuff in here and in here, right? We all go through those stages. Those seasons. And in that point in my life, that definition did not work for me anymore. Because I thought, okay, if I don't think about myself, then am I not important enough to work on? Like, I need to make some investment in me. So the last couple of weeks, again, while I was kind of meditating on this and studying this, I thought, what's a good way right now that I could understand humility in a healthy way? And I thought about this idea of having an overwhelming, like, awe-inspiring moment where I don't think less of myself, but what I do is I understand my place a little better. And see, for me, it's because as a father and a husband and as a pastor, and I get so wrapped up in me being the center of my own world, right? Because if I don't pay the bills don't get paid. If as a husband and a father, if you don't keep up with the vehicles and the yard and the all those things, I know Sylvia's not here, she cuts the grass, bless her heart. But and moms, if you don't keep the house running, if you don't take care of all your husband's stuff so he can do what we become the center of our own worlds. And that is almost a necessity. You have to make sure that you're on your game, or else in reality, the world stops turning. I know we say that, like, well, the world's not going to stop turning if you take a break. Sometimes, yes, it will. You mamas know. Don't take a day off or two from doing dishes and making sure the kids have clothes, and just take a day off, right? Take two. What's going to happen? Everybody's 10 minutes. Everybody, what are we supposed to eat? Where's my socks? I don't have any underwear. Mom, what are you doing? We don't have any forks to eat with. The world literally stops turning. Like a bunch of, your whole family becomes a troop of trash pandas, right? For guys, Don't go to work for a week. Just go like, you know what, I'm taking this week off. Miss a whole week's worth of pay. The world just about stops turning. So those moments are important. It is important to realize that that is a thing. But there also has to be time for you to step back and you go, you know what? Here's what we have for supper. Here's what we have for lunches. The cabinets are full. Your clothes hampers are full. Everything's done. I need a couple hours. And I need to refresh. I need to recharge. I need some me time. Don't knock on the door. Don't call my name. Don't go outside and play. You know, in my day, they sent you outside and said, don't come back in this house until dark. Don't knock on the door. Our kids come in 15, 20 times within 30 minutes. I'm like, what are you doing? Well, we don't have anything to do. What do you mean? You have 80 acres of property. Go build a hut or something. I don't know. Play in the mud. Whatever. We don't know what to do. You have to have time of recharging and time where you are taking care of yourself. You have to have this Hod time, because life can become all about us, and that's a real thing. But when you have a moment where you see a beautiful landscape, or you hear beautiful music, or you see artwork that just puts you in a place of awe, it helps to position you rightly. What these things do for me is they make me realize that even though in my head I'm caught up in my own world, it helps me to realize there's a lot of world out there that I have no idea about. I don't have any control over it. I don't have any understanding of it. I don't have any. This is so nerdy, but I love watching the show How It's Made. You know, where they take you in the factory and make, because I don't know anything about those worlds, and it gets me out of my head to go like, there's so much world that I am incapable of knowing about. Life is not all about me. Points in my life are all about me. I have to make the world continue to turn at some points, but there are so many beautiful things. I love talking to Tib about working offshore his whole life. I love talking to Joe about what he does as an operator. Brother Ron about all his experiences. Mark Coughlin fascinates me with how his brain works. So all of these things is because it's things I don't know about, and it gets me out of me. Does that make sense? To me, that's humility. Humility is rightly understanding my place. This solves some problems for me in thinking about humility, because it's not a value statement, right? It's a posture and a position statement. I am valuable in the places where I am responsible to be valued. Yeah? I don't have to know everything about everything. I don't have to have my hands in everything. I don't have to have an opinion about everything. Hey, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? Don't know. It's not in my, it's above my pay grade, right? You say act your wage, right? And that's a thing. I just want to act my wage. And my wage is not to be mayor or governor or president or messiah or anything like that. It's to be a husband and a father and a pastor in a small town in southwest Louisiana. And that is a beautiful position to be in. And that is humbling, because I realize that I can be released from all those pressures and all of those things. So I want to encourage you to think about humility in that way. And if you can't remember the last time you had one of those awe-inspiring moments, go find one. Go find one, because it'll be like medicine to your soul. So what does this have to do kind of with, we talked about these attributes and how they work together. When you experience splendor, and the most splendiferous encounter you can have is with Hashem. Sometimes it's through worship, through what we call worship when we're at home, sometimes it's through prayer. Sometimes it's through seeing the hand of God just work in your life. Sometimes it's through reading the word and something just catches you, it takes your breath away already. When you experience that splendor, it should put you in the right position, the right place. And then when we talk about gratitude, it's so much easier to have gratitude whenever you realize that there's no judgment, no condition, no condemnation, no ulterior motive, no nothing. I can just have gratitude for where I am when I am. Because I have no responsibility for those things that I can't change. And then you want to talk about sincerity. Since when you have those moments where you realize that you're not the be-all, end-all, it really brings a sense of sincerity to you, because it's so easy to honor someone else for the things that they can do that you can't. When you honor someone else's ability, when you praise and you can respect someone else's ability that you don't have, without it making you feel less about yourself, that's humility. That is sincerity. I don't want to be a master plumber, but I'm amazed that Ron knows what he knows and can do what he do. The same thing with Dad and electricity. Electricity baffles my mind. I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. But he knows. And every one of you have a thing that you're better at than somebody else. And that says nothing about your value. It has to do with your position, with your circle that God has entrusted you to take care of. And then you can sincerely pursue your own calling, your own path. Again, Chill and I were talking before about in a place as big as Atlanta, and in a time where diversity seems to be the new, magnum opus of every social group or whatever. Go to a place like Atlanta, go to a place like New Orleans, whatever, where there's so much cultural diversity. And the truth is that no one wants you to be you. They want you to be a part of their diversity. But they also want everybody else to be a part of their diversity. Be diverse like us. Wait, that's the opposite of diversity. In our political climate, everybody's screaming diversity, diversity, diversity. That only works if you're diverse like they want you to be. Be unique like us. Right? That's the only way that works. And you know what? It's not a bad thing. That's human nature. But don't castigate me for not being diverse, but not conforming to your particular thing. I want everybody to pursue their relationship with God at 1,000 miles an hour with 1,000% effort. And I want your relationship with God to look like whatever it's supposed to, just so it looks like ours. Right? And that's one of the things that we push against here, is that you might find a beautiful awe in head wrapping. And if you're a lady that doesn't, it doesn't mean that you're anything less or more than. It has nothing to do with that. Your walk is your walk, and it's beautifully diverse. In the Tanakh, forms of the word Hod, actually we sing a song, Hodu Ladonai Kitov, right? Ki leolam chazdo, where we talk about God's splendor, God's his magnificence, right? That splendor, his glory. There's all kind of words that we use to do it. In Exodus 15:11, that's Song of the Sea. That's where that root comes from. Who is like you, right? Glorious in all of your works, all your splendors. Psalm 110:3 speaks of splendor, of Hod, as a reward for obedience. This splendor, this glory that we receive when we're obedient, or as a reward for obedience. Probably the most relevant and accurate attitude or gratitude kind of thing is from Psalm 116:12, and you can write these down and check them out later. It says, "How can I repay Adonai for his hodot?" And those are for his, use any of these words, for his splendors to me, for his affirmations to me, for his gratitude to me or for me. This is a way that we connect Hod with praise. And all the point is that it's a way of understanding God's majesty and splendor. So here's a kind of a wrap-up question. Have you been in places, are you at a place now where it's hard for you to see the splendor of God? And don't give the Sunday school, oh no, don't do that. Sit with that question this week and really ask yourself, now this is not a condemnation, like if you can't see the splendor of God, then something's wrong with you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that sometimes life, your focus has to be elsewhere. And we can't live under the splendor of God 24/7. We would just be we'd be immovable. We'd just be a vegetable. But how long has it been since you've had one of those moments with God where you saw a piece of his splendor and it just took your breath away? It gave you those butterflies almost that just made your mind go like, what? How long has it been? How long has it been between the last one and the one before that? See if there's a pattern in your life, because acknowledging and taking in God's majesty and his splendor is something that we should cultivate. We should cultivate. Why in the world do we spend 20, 30 minutes every Shabbat service singing songs? Half of y'all don't even like it. Half of you love it. Why do we do it? Because it's a vehicle to open ourselves up to see God's splendor. That's what it's about. Does God need our words? Does he desire our words? Yes, but only if they come from a heart that attitude is, I'm singing these things to you because I see your splendor. I see your glorious nature, right? I'm in awe of you. And we use all of these words, and they're right and they're fitting for times of praise and worship and honor. They're all right and fitting. I'm just tying them to this idea of Hod because it is one of the ways that God interfaces with creation. So the challenge for Hod is to cultivate those moments of awe. Again, this is not a condemnation thing. Maybe you're sitting there, you're watching online, you're going like, I get it, but like I'm just not an emotional person. This is not about an emotion. It may trigger an emotion for people who are naturally a little more emotional, but it can be a completely logical thing. Maybe you look at nature and you just realize that there's no way that things should operate the way they operate. There's no way that existence should be what it is. And maybe in a logical sense that just puts you in awe of who God is, the creator. There's 1,000 different ways to think about this. What I'm trying to do is give you an access point, because whenever you understand and whenever Hod is a real active and consistent part of your experiential life, then it balances this pushing, this discipline, this patience that can be very wearing, but can also be very pride-producing. Understanding God's splendor has a way of soothing that part and balancing that part. And when we get to next week, we'll see what it creates. Lastly, the fruit of the Spirit that we're going to tie Hod to is gentleness or meekness. Yeshua spoke a lot about meekness in the Sermon on the Mount, right? The fruit corresponding to Hod is gentleness or meekness. I love the way these notes say it. It says gentleness involves humility of strength and kind response even under provocation. Your husband is commenting on our live stream as he's driving to work. And seems to be some slow drivers in the left-hand lane this morning. Imagine that. And he's been victorious. Congratulations. But are we people that say that we can be of strong character and have a good character response? Kiva, Clint, I'm listening to you guys. A response of strong character under provocation. Why do we react under provocation? Listen, most of the time we're provoked, there's nobody provoking you. That driver in the left-hand lane, they are completely oblivious that anybody is upset around them. You know how I know that? Because whenever I pass them in the slow lane, I mean mug them every single time. I look over. I want to see if you look as stupid as you are. And you know what they're doing? Not a clue. I'm frothing at the mouth. There's indentions in the steering wheel. I'm so aggravated. And you know what? Peace like a river in their car. I mean, just happy as a lark. They don't even know they're driving on the highway. They got hoed down. And and in my mind, they're provoking me. What do you mean? How many times have you gotten upset because somebody looked at you crossways? You know how many expressions your face makes in the day that you have no idea that it's making?
It needs to quit being truthful, that's all.
Well, I mean sometimes. Nobody looked at you crossways. Nobody provoked you. That's you. You're in your own head so bad. See, that is a lack of humility. You don't understand your place. You think you affect everybody's life around you. And while to some degree you can, you don't. And neither do I. And not everybody's out to get you or me. So the reacting in good character when we're provoked is not a thing you should have to force yourself to do. You should look at your reactions and realize if there's a root there that's causing you to react in a certain way. When you understand your place, when you're meek, when you're gentle, when you realize that the world is much, much, much bigger than you, then it has a beautiful way of balancing. I have to be very responsible and intense and deliberate about my world, but everybody else's world is hands off. Whew. And y'all listen, my Azer Conegdo, my one who opposes me, every week that I teach, the last several weeks that I've taught this, every week she goes like, you remember what you taught Saturday? You remember? You know, like, God's going to, yeah, I know. So I'm just waiting for it this week. So hold me accountable. So we don't have to lower ourselves. Messiah didn't lower himself in value. He said things like, if you've heard me, you've heard the Father. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. That is not a small picture of yourself. Could you imagine me standing up going, here, hey, listen to my words, because if you hear me, you're hearing God. I mean, it makes me... I mean, I know a lot of preachers that will stand up every Sunday morning and say stuff like that, and I want to crawl, like I used to want to crawl under the pew, like, please don't say that. That's not a small statement about how you view yourself, But he understood that there were some things that even he could not fix. So humility is not thinking less about yourself, and it's not even not thinking about yourself. It's understanding your place in meekness and gentleness. And I'm so thankful that we have each other for that accountability. I'm thankful for Heather, that is that accountability. We are adversaries to one another in the best possible way. In the truest sense of what an adversary is supposed to be biblically, we are that for each other. So let's help each other develop this sense of Hod. Next week, we're going to talk about this. We got 2 more emanations left. Next week, we're going to talk about this center one, which is Yesod. And Yesod is the foundation, or like the bond. When 2 things are connected together, that bond is called a Yesod. And it can also be like a channel through which things are funneled and organized and focused. And so this is a really fun one. And then the last one is Malchut, which is royalty and kingdom. And then we're going to kind of spend a week tying all these things together a little bit more. Amen? Amen.